Welcome to the Impact Multiplier CEO podcast. If you're a chief executive, or if you think like one, and you want to create exponentially greater impact, then this show is for you. My name is Richard Medcalf, founder of Xquadrant. I coach some of the most successful and impressive CEOs and executive teams on the planet and help them achieve extraordinary results. And no matter how successful you've been in the past, there's always a whole new level of impact available to you. So, if you're ready to play a bigger game than ever before, I invite you to join us and become an Impact Multiplier CEO. Elizabeth, hi, it's great to meet you.
Nice to meet you also.
So I am looking forward to this conversation. I know since you've joined HG Insights a couple of years back, you've really made great steps in transforming the organization, and you just completed an acquisition 5 days ago. So you're kind of right on that, on the cusp of a new chapter, I guess, in the business.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to kind of getting in and finding out a bit about this. About your learning curve as chief executive in this business. So before we do that, why don't you give us a quick summary, the elevator pitch? What's HG Insights and what's it all about?
Yeah. So HG Insights, so we're a big data company, and at the core, what we do is tell companies, and for any company in the world, we can tell you the technology intelligence for that company, what technologies they're using, when they started using them, when they stopped using them. But the really interesting thing about HG Insights is that we get that information by mining literally billions of free-form documents every single month. And we extract that information through machine learning, through natural language processing and rule-based algorithms to come up with the insights that we deliver out to our clients.
Okay, and these are then used by companies who want to kind of potentially market based on technology usage in a company, for example. Is that right?
Exactly, and it's actually used that kind of information fairly broadly for decision making in a technology company. You can imagine if a company is trying to decide what next market to go into, or whether sales territories are equitable, or whether they just want to market, do a campaign. That's obviously something that's applicable, but it's very, very broadly applied at companies like Cisco and Microsoft and SAP. All the big enterprise companies really understand how to make use of our insights at this point.
And so what attracted you to the company? Why did you move into, why did you go for this one for the next journey?
Yeah, that's a good question. If you look at my background, I've never been the guy to come in and start from scratch. The kind of really creative, seeing something from nothing, I have such respect for. And HG had a founder, Craig Harris, who really did that from the very beginning. In fact, the company HG stands for Holy Grail, because at the beginning there was nothing but an idea that he could help people market better, and he would go out and ask, "What's your holy grail of marketing data?" And hence it stuck with the company. So when I was right before this, I was up in Silicon Valley running Support.com, a public company, and that was interesting and had its whole another set of different dynamics. But I got a call from one of the board members I knew at HG, who said, "Look, the company, Craig's got it so that there are deep assets in this company. But really what we need is somebody who's passionate about getting them in the hands of customers and creating products around them and building a sales and marketing machine." And that's kind of right up my alley and what I like to do. So I met Craig, helped him a little bit on a consulting basis to put together some stuff at the company. And then a quarter or so later, when he really wanted to step aside and hand the reins over, I selected to be CEO, and very, very glad that it all transpired like that.
Yeah, that's it's fantastic. Yeah, so often that happens, right? There's like a technical-led company that creates incredible assets, but they're not always scaled out, right, to the people, multiplied out, in fact. So that was your role. So
Yes.
so what was the biggest surprises that you discovered on this journey? You came in, and things aren't always as you expect, perhaps. What was that like for you, that transition?
So with HG Insights in particular, I think the biggest surprise is that the revenue had been growing, and nicely, not really, not really hugely, but nicely and steadily. But it was always from something else, and it was always a new idea, a new product, a new customer vertical, and that makes sense in retrospect. If you've got a very creative set of engineers and they're trying out all different ideas, that's what you end up with. But I think that was a bigger surprise than I thought, because it really meant that the first year of the company, I had to really focus it down into specific things that we could do. Going forward, it's an asset because we just have an expansive opportunity of other types of insights that can be drawn out of our massive database and taken to market. But that was a surprise, having to really refocus the whole company.
Okay, so you thought that it had some machine in place, but it didn't really have a machine. It was more of a product factory. It was more of a project factory, even. I don't know.
Project factory. There's a good way of looking at it. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a lot of kind of systematization or process to put in, by the sound of it.
Yeah, and that's continued, and I think it continues for anybody that's building a company that's scaling really rapidly. Is systematization of everything end to end is really important. And as you mentioned, we just did an acquisition, so we're about 145 people now. Our company we acquired intricately was close to 50. So we're very quickly going to be over 200 people. And to really run a company well like that and have everybody understanding what their role is in growing the company and having impact on the company, it takes a lot in terms of putting the systems in place. In fact, I was just talking to our new colleagues yesterday and telling them that and I said to them, don't hold this against me, but I'm a big fan of process. And the reason I'm a big fan of process is it takes the politics out of running the company. If you've got a process for hiring, a process for promoting people, they're transparent, everybody knows what to do, everybody's judged by the same rule book, it really makes accelerating in a time like we're at much easier and much happier for everybody that's working in the environment.
How do you create process without losing agility?
Yes, yeah, and that is absolutely the key. I think process without losing agility is creating the processes that people are going to use rather than the ones that you look up every 7 months because you're going to you want to acquire a piece of software that's going to end up $75,000 a year rather than $50,000 a year, and there's a different process for that. I mean, those kind of things are, to me, are indicative of big companies when you get that detail on it. But when you think about the various things that you need to do to recruit and retain and to build products, just to take how does a new idea get into your product pipeline? A process around that opens up the company so that everybody can contribute, as opposed to something that is way too detailed and way too overblown. I think that's the judgment I make on when process is going to slow you down.
Yeah, interesting. And so where was the company where you started and where is it now? What's been the change in those two?
Yeah, just in terms of revenue. So I'll just give you the highlights there. We were just under 10 million. Everything we do is software as a service. So we're just under 10 million annual recurring revenue. And last year we topped out at 43.3 million annual recurring revenue. So really nice growth in 4 years. We were about 40, 45 people when I joined, and now we're close to 150 and intricately 200. So kind of orders of magnitude change in terms of the top line and the finances. We were burning cash. We became even profitable in 2019. So all the key metrics came along. But what was driving that underneath it is a change that one change that we made in our go-to-market. So when I got here, we were driven 50% by channel partners and 50% by direct sales. And we're now about a little over 90% direct sales and less than 10% on channel partners. And a little bit, we still do some digital advertising products with our data. So that's a little.
So tell me about that. I'm curious because I know a lot of companies go, we need to scale. We need to just like get the channel partners in, and that's how we're going to scale big time. But actually, you've kind of taken a different approach and kind of brought it in house. So what was the thinking there? Why was that the secret to growth?
Yeah, that's really interesting that you pointed out like that, because you're right that most of the time when people want to scale, they look at leveraging other channels to market, and OEMs and VARs often fit into that.
Yeah.
For what we were doing, what it's really interesting because we quickly realized that the insights that we have can be applied to really complex problems in technology companies. And working with our customers to show them how they can have such ROI from what we sell to them was very much, I won't call it custom because we don't have custom products, but it was very much a consultative process with the customers. And so we started building up really astute sales teams and customer success managers, and realized the stickiness of what we were doing and the depth of impact we could make on a customer was so much greater when we could work with them and show them how to apply what we had to their problems. And then concurrently, we were looking at our channel partners who, they skimmed the top of the surface of what they could do with data. And people were getting very confused out there. Well, what's lead space got that HG, that I should get from HG? And it would go into a long conversation. So in my first year, I probably canceled about 75% of our channel partners. Starting with one of the big ones in the MarTech sales tech space right now, which was kind of fun because you get this call. It's like, you can't cancel us. And it's like, oh yeah, we can. We don't need this because we saw how much we could grow and how much more value we could give to customers by going directly and working with them directly.
Yeah, so you're bringing expertise, as well as the direct passion, because this is your thing, right? Rather than it's one of many on the truck. But it's that sense of expertise and being able to kind of go deep with the customer.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is great, because I love it, because that's often people forget that, I think, and they're always looking for the next client, but actually sometimes slowing down and seeing how much value can we add to this one right in front of us right now can actually be the secret to growth, right? You don't need to run around always to find pure volume.
Another interesting thing, sorry, I didn't mean to step on the end of this, but I get really excited about this stuff. A really great thing about how we approach that is it allowed us to take that consultative problem and then build it back into our platform, so that then the automation can actually help to show the customers how to use our underlying insights and data. So it's been just this great flywheel effect when we've gone to a direct sales team.
Yeah. Okay. So by going through the process with the customer, you can see how you can actually make that available. Is more of a systematic approach.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. So, what were some of the surprises or perhaps challenges along the way, right? Because I guess it's not all been smooth sailing. So, what was difficult for you as a CEO? What did you find hard in that journey?
One, having the patience to get there. So I've always wanted in my career to solve bigger and bigger problems. So I aspired to, at Citrix, running one of their lines of business. Before that at ValueClick, really looking at a whole media area for them. So I was always drawn to the bigger problems, and the CEO role was kind of the end all and be all of that, because as a CEO, it's, it's up to you. You've got the problems, and you've got to either solve them, or if you don't, it all comes back to you. So I knew I wanted to grow into that role, but I didn't know it was going to take as long as it did, and not that I regret anything that I did in the various parts of my career. Far from it. I wouldn't change any of the choices that I made. But I don't know whether this is true for other CEOs. I ended up going through, I'll call it training of a lot of different areas in business just by working in different roles. So, I've been CMO, I've been VP of marketing, I've been VP of product, I've been EVP of client services. I think I've run development teams. So it really, by the time I got to the CEO role, I really felt pretty well equipped for it. But it was really, really going broad that helped me to do that. And I give that advice to others that want to get into a CEO role. It's don't worry too much about your career taking different paths. It's a very, very good thing at the end of the day.
It's Richard here with a quick interlude. As part of my coaching and advisory work, I often work with leaders who have recently taken on the CEO role. It's a big leap from the comfort zone of functional leadership or business unit management. And it opens up a whole new set of stakeholders, pressures, decisions, and responsibilities. I found that there are 3 key things that will make a huge difference in those first quarters. Number 1, balancing the operational and the strategic, what I call CEO focus. Number 2, establishing credibility, what I call CEO presence. And number 3, managing stakeholders, those CEO conversations. I've written a short email series that goes into more detail on the transition to CEO and how you can practically sharpen your CEO focus, solidify your CEO presence, and master your CEO conversations. It's insightful and it's entirely free of charge, and you can register for it by going to xquadrant.com/go/curve. Now, back to the conversation. Yeah, sometimes the direct line is not always the way.
Yeah.
What about the other tip for a CEO? So you mentioned there about being okay to go on the journey and to explore different parts and build the skill set.
Yeah.
Once somebody's in the role as a CEO, what would be your top tip for them?
So a couple things. Particularly if you're first time in the role of CEO, I would get help, right? So you yourself do this with CEOs, to go out and really work with them as a coach. It's a cliche, but it is lonely at the top. I mean, you can't on almost any big decision. You can't sit down with your board. You're presenting to the board. They expect to have the answers.
Yeah, they're involved parties, right? They're not independent. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not independent. You can't really do it with your team because you're expecting them to help solve the problem, but you can't put the burden of the decision on the team. And so I found it tremendously helpful executive coaches. When I first went to support.com, I had a really wonderful guy. And when I first got there, there was a choice of, I had to make a decision about the CTO who had been there for a long time. And he was still contributing, and I certainly didn't want to destroy the morale of the company. And it was my executive coach that actually help me work through an organizational structure of the company that would allow the CTO to still contribute, yet move him out of the role where he was causing some issues. And I don't think, could I have gotten to that kind of perspective all by myself? Maybe, but it would have taken a lot longer than working with somebody else. And particularly with a subject like that, you're not going to do that with your executive team. For God's sake.
Yeah,
on it, right?
Yeah, it's funny actually. I mean, sometimes coaching can be seen as a remedial thing, and like, you've had somebody say, why would they need coaching? They're fine, And for me, the point is, no, it's my clients on top of their game. They don't need coaching, it's that they want an accelerator, or they want a sounding board, they want to raise the game of whatever they're doing, just like any high performer. So I'll slip you the check later.
I was thinking about that, way before you and I. But I think the other thing I'd say to a CEO, whether it's a new CEO or somebody that's into a new CEO position, is to move quickly. I mean, that might sound cliche, like also, but make an impact quickly. Hire, fire, acquire, whatever is right for the company at the time. Don't second guess your own instincts. Just do it. And if you make a mistake early on, you've got a lot of leeway at that point. At HG, before I really even know the business, it was actually a week before I got on board, one of our partners approached us to be acquired. And it was a big decision for me because I was going on the opinions of a couple of people on the company. We ended up acquiring this partner, Pivotal IQ. So that was our first acquisition in 2018. We completed that in September. So, and it was great, but I got to tell you, working with the board, they were like, well, this is interesting. This is really a pretty aggressive move for somebody that's been in the seat for a couple of weeks. So I'm like, from what I look at it, really looks right. And that's where, trust your gut. You've put in the work and the time to get into the seat. And luckily for us, the acquisition of Pivotal IQ was another real accelerator with HG. So, hire, fire, acquire. That's
nice. Yeah. Move quickly. I love it. So a couple of quick fire questions for you as we kind of start to wrap up a little bit here. What's your favorite quote? What's something that's really shaped your leadership?
Shape my leadership, or an output of my leadership. And this actually is my last name Cholawsky is Ukrainian actually, and my grandparents were from Kiev, and so I'm always drawn to this quote from Ocean's 11, and it's from Skinny Pete, and he says, "If there's one thing I know, it's never to mess with Mother Nature, Mother Love, or Mother freaking Ukrainians." And I use that sometimes as, when I make a decision, we're going to go for it. Don't mess with Mother freaking Ukrainians. And hats off to all my old ties to the Ukraine. And I just hope everything turns out much better than it's looking right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Is there an app or anything on your phone that you kind of find is surprisingly helpful, useful, addictive, whatever?
Well, one thing we haven't talked about is kind of what I do outside of work, and one of my hobbies is triathlons. So I'm constantly, and I've been doing triathlon since I moved to California in '96. So a long time. Wow. So I'm always either training or recovering or doing something like that. And there's the Garmin watch, I live and die by it. And so the Garmin application that's on the phone, that's the one I'm always checking,
That's one you're always checking. Okay. Yeah. Very, metrics driven. I know you describe yourself as metrics driven. So yes. There we go.
Yeah.
How about a book that's really influenced you?
Yeah, I've got one that's always at the top of my bookshelf, and that's the Hard Thing About Hard Things from Ben Horowitz. A lot of people know that, but you should read pages 111 to 113 because it tells you everything you need to know about product management. And it's one of the hardest jobs in the company and it's the most important. And he just nails it in terms of what you need to do.
Perfect. There we go. Even the page references, I'm impressed.
Well, you know what? I know those. I actually quote those to product managers when they're stressing and kind of going off the reservation. I'm like, 3 pages. Go read these.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
Yeah, that I would probably say, don't drive yourself to perfection. Don't try to, get everything right all the time. But, I think about that and that's the same thing I'm telling myself today. It's like, oh, come on, give yourself a little more leeway.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, we've got that high, perfectionist streak. It can be, it's inspiring for people. It can also be inhibiting sometimes as well, and it can also just be that burden on ourselves.
Yes,
that
exactly.
we're always facing it. Yeah, the way I like to hack people when they're kind of stressing about things like over perfectioning, I always say, stop trying to be the high performing janitor, and that tends to stop them. It's like, because you got a business to run here. You don't need to keep polishing this particular floor tile.
I like that. I might steal that if you don't mind, Richard.
You're okay. Yeah, you could use it. Lastly, many of our best guests on the show come from referrals. So I'm always curious, to ask people, who's somebody who's an impactful CEO who you've encountered in your career, who you might want to recommend as a great guest for a future episode.
Yeah. One of mine, I've been fortunate and have been helped by so many people along the way, but there's one CEO that I still go to for advice, and that's Michael Crandell. He's running a company right now called Bitwarden. It's in the password management space, and he's taken that from nothing to now dominant enterprise company. But he's done that at other companies, and he's just the kind of guy that he can, if he has to fire somebody, he fires them and that person comes back and talks about how wonderful that guy is and it was the right thing to do. He just has a way of running companies that make them great for the individuals and still manages to accelerate. So he's got a lot of useful advice.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's that whole thing about there's the business, there's the people, there's the impact you're making in the world, and trying to keep all those things in balance is important. And if you can do it all, it's great.
Yeah.
So here's my favorite question, the one I always love is no matter how much we've achieved, there's always a next level to get to. So, where does HG Insights go from here as a business? You've just made this acquisition, but what's next?
Yeah. Well, we're just getting started. So, last, just about a year and a quarter ago, we got a very big investment from Riverwood Capital, so a private equity company, and with their help, we did the acquisition. They have big goals for us. Jeff Parks, the partner there, keeps using the IPO word, but we really believe that we can be the dominant company to solve complex business problems with data-driven insights. So I don't think there's anything to stop us.
Okay, so there's plenty more fields to move into, right? With that as your mandate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And what are you going to need to perhaps do differently yourself, Elizabeth, to multiply your own impact? Clearly, you've achieved a lot in this company and previously, but the thing that the way that we work is our strength, and it's also what's holding us back. So I'm always curious, what might you need to kind of work on, do differently in the future to multiply your impact?
Yeah, certainly with where the company's going, we're looking to scale past the $100 million mark very quickly. One thing that I've thought about is I really need to spend a lot more of my time and develop a lot more of my skills for external contact. And that means both changing the way I work and where I put my time, but it also means training the executive staff so that they're thinking like individual general managers as opposed to just a functional area leader. So I've got to change kind of what's going on internally, and then I've got to, believe, learn new skills or learn them again to be more externally focused. And I'm working on both those things, both with my team and getting out there more. And luckily, the pandemic is coming coming to an end.
Hopefully, yeah, a bit more flexibility at least. Yeah. I went to the US a couple of weeks ago, and there were two great things that happened. One was I managed to get there, and one was I managed to get back. But even then, since then, restrictions have lifted a bit more, and it's a bit easier. So that's good news.
Yeah. Good.
Fantastic. So, last thing is, if people want to get in touch or find out more about HG Insights or about get in touch with you, how should they do that?
Yep, it's easy. That just go to our website, hginsights.com, and my contact information is there. The emails are very easy. It's just first dot last and the company name. So happy to get any inquiries. I always love hearing other people's stories.
Yeah, perfect. Well, hey, Elizabeth, I've enjoyed this this discussion. I think it's fascinating. You came in product, this business that had all this creative energy, and you've been able to kind of apply process and structure it, and you've seen that energy has been now taken direction and you multiplied your revenues already, and you're going to go way beyond that. And then I think this point around actually you cut back, right? You cut back from all the channel partners, the ones that were bringing in half your revenue, right, in order to double down on the place that was going to create intimacy and customer insight for you to be able to deliver the business. So I think really interesting stories there. So thank you for sharing those with us, and it's been a pleasure to talk with you. So
pleasure's all mine. Thank you for the invitation, Richard.
No, you're welcome, and I look forward to hearing as the journey progresses.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Now let's talk about you. When you're in top leadership, when you're in the biggest role of your career, who supports you at a deep level as you lead others? Who helps you multiply your impact and get to the next level? If you're ready to learn more about our content, our coaching, and our community, then visit us at xquadrant.com.